Earlier today, PAI Capital's Philip Beard was invited by Talksport to speak on the Jim White and Simon Jordan show about his group's bid to buy West Ham United Football Club. For the benefit of those of you who are unable to tune into the show live, we bring you that interview in full for educational purposes only right here. Once you've heard it, let us know what you thought of the interview by visiting the kumb.com forum or any one of our social media channels.
PAI Capital. Who are they? We're about to find out more about them. They're a consortium trying to buy West Ham United, and the man, the face of the consortium, the spokesman for that consortium, joins us live here in studio. A fella I haven't seen for quite a number of years, since I used to meet him at Loftus Road when he was with Queen's Park Rangers. Mr. Philip Beard, good afternoon. How are you?
Very well, Jim, and it's really good to see you again as well, because it has been a while.
It has been a while. You have moved on and you are doing other things. And of course, you were involved in the Olympics. We'll get into that. I know your involvement at the O2. And now, of course, you've turned your attentions to the potential takeover of a Premier League club. And that club is West Ham United, run by Messrs Sullivan, Gold and Brady. And many of the listeners out there who support West Ham have their own views on them. And you're well aware of that. Simon and I deal with it almost all the time. So where should we go with this, Philip? First off, tell us, who are PAI Capital?
Well, we're PAI Capital. We're a private equity group, investors in different businesses. Most of the partners have been very successful. And this is another project that we're keen to move on and try and complete.
So most of the people involved are pretty wealthy individuals. Are they based in London? Are they based abroad?
We're based in Savile Row in London.
All of them based in London?
Yes.
Okay, because there was talk, we heard Dubai get mentioned. That's nonsense, is it?
No,
all based here?
Some of the partners split time between different businesses, but they're all based primarily outside of in the UK.
Okay. So is it the case that you've made one bid and that bid was batted back?
Well, what I'm trying to do is put the record slightly more straight. You know, we're keen, and I've got utmost respect for Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Gold and Karen Brady. But we're interested, and we're interested for two or three reasons. One is we think we could do something with West Ham. We think that if the price was right, they'd sell. So we put together a bid. We provided proof of funds. And for some reason, West Ham said that they hadn't had a formal bid and hadn't had proof of funds. So I think it's only right for West Ham fans to know that there has been a bid. The challenge seems to be that Mr. Sullivan seems to have a much higher value. And, at the end of the day, whatever you spend on a business, especially football, the more you spend, the less you can invest in the team and the squad. And so there's a realistic value, we think, that is acceptable, should be acceptable, pretty much we thought was accepted. And now the goalposts have changed, literally.
Okay, so the goalposts have changed. Can you tell us the nature of the bid? I mean, are we talking in the region of 400 million?
Yeah, I won't give specifics, but we think it's a very fair valuation. We think that Mr. Sullivan thought it was as well. But, Simon knows this, you guys know this. If somebody decides to change the valuation of anything, it's their prerogative. And David Sullivan and David Gold have the majority shareholdings in West Ham United, been there for 11 years, passionate about the club, I'm sure. But we would like to try and do something there. And part of the reason is that I have this issue around football clubs, and particularly the Olympic Stadium, being underutilised. Now, if we were to do something with West Ham, I can promise you that they would be the heart of the vision of all the projects we would do. So it's West Ham United's home, and it will be, and that's not even in question. But if we can get the right investment, I think we could improve the stadium. I think we could do more stuff at the more events and things at the stadium, not affecting at all the football club, but generating revenue from other events would mean we'd have more money as well to invest back into the club. So the Olympic Park as well is, I don't know if you've been there recently. Simon, I don't know if you've been down to the park.
I have, yeah.
But it feels to me like, again, that is underutilised. And it's 10 years next year since the Olympic Games were on. So I look at it and think we could create, I believe, a whole series of activities in the park that would be generating money, profits. And actually, as we all know, at the moment, it is a cost for the taxpayer.
Right. So you're big on Olympic legacy, Philip. We'll get onto that shortly because, with all due respect, I'm not sure that West Ham fans listening this lunchtime are particularly bothered about Olympic legacy. They want to see you take over the football club, and they want you to take West Ham better than 6 last season.
And that's our vision, and that's our objective, and that's our plan. And I think it can be done. I believe that we can make the experience for West Ham fans when they come to the stadium a better experience. I think we can do more for them. We all know that the Olympic Stadium as a configuration is not been brilliant for a football club. So we can work on that, and technology will allow us to do things like that. When I was at the O2, we'll come on to that, I'm sure. We had retractable seating.
Right.
Because of brand new arena. And, I think West Ham fans deserve I'm not going to say better owners because that's totally insulting, but I think what we want to try and do is make their experience better, and that includes investing on the pitch as well in the squad.
Okay, so you're serious about it. It's just that West Ham tell us a formal bid. There was no formal bid. They don't see it as a formal bid. I mean, how did it go in? How were proof of funds shown? How did this work?
Well, I can't go into those exact sort of details, but at the end of the day, we're comfortable that we've made a realistic offer.
But Philip, I mean, there's an element of irony of coming onto a radio show to talk about transparency of how a transaction will manifest itself without being transparent. If you want to buy a football club, having bought and sold football clubs and bought and sold businesses, the way you appear to be going about it is the antithesis of how I would go about buying a football club, because sitting on Talksport is not the way you buy football clubs. Buying football clubs is finding some sort of accord with the owners and using professional people to do it. My understanding is that you put a proof of funds in via Oldswang as a letter saying that you guys have the funds, without a great deal of qualification behind that. To just sit here and say, I want to set the record straight. I'm not attacking you, by the way. I'm just setting a framework. To set the record straight and to put people into the picture, there's an element of playing to the gallery, right? Everybody knows, that's got half a brain, that the West Ham fans have done nothing but be upset about the move from the Berlin to the Olympic Stadium. So you suggesting you're going to make it a better experience in the stadium is you guys playing to the gallery. I would have suspected there's an element of naivety about some of the people you've brought into your consortium as well, with the Rio Ferdinand and Anton Ferdinand, with Rio Ferdinand spending the entire summer advocating that Declan Rice gets sold to Man United. I would have thought there's a little bit of naivety about bringing him into your mix. But the notion of trying to buy a football club and at the same time dragging the current owners into the public domain over an unsightly sort of sentiment of who's made an offer, how much the offer was for, whether the offer was put in place. And I've had a little conversation with a couple of them. It's fair to say, right, I am no cheerleader for David Gold and David Sullivan. If anyone knows my background with David Sullivan and David Gold, I know perfectly well what they're capable of. But it's their business. And if you knock on the door, right, and say, I want to buy your business or your house for XYZ, and they say no, and we want XYZ, we want more than that, you can't sit in the public domain crying foul because you don't like the fact they want to get more money for their business. That's up to them. But I'm trying to get an understanding of, it can't be a difficult question. Proof of funds is not difficult. I went and bought a football club. I went in with my checkbook and I wrote a cheque out.
So you've shown
proof of funds is not difficult.
You've shown proof of funds and you've made a bid.
Exactly that. And the reason I've come on here is because Jim White asked me to, and I like him a lot. But also, it was a chance to just explain what we did. And Simon, I hear you, and I've been in business for a long time, and negotiations ideally are handled and negotiated without having to go and say too much to other people. Mm-hmm. But football is different, and you know better than anybody. And the reality is that when we were told that we hadn't provided a bid or proof of funds, there was no option than to at least address that and explain that we had. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about it because I think that is private, because we have done it, but we are preparing a second bid.
You can't argue it's a public.
Hang on, Simon. You are preparing a second bid.
Yeah, and I absolutely can, because I can decide what detail I want to go into. I'm trying to let the club and the fans know that we are serious. We're very serious business people. We have the funds. Mm-hmm. We won't have debt carrying forward. We're not doing debt financing. Mm. So that's important. We've got to transfer if we can get the deal done. And, there's a very good chance, Simon, that we won't. I mean, if Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Gold decide, literally, guys, it doesn't matter what
you've been around football 99 times out of 100, when you drag a deal into the public domain and talk the way you are, these deals don't happen. The first thing I sit there and say is, the moment I hear you guys talking through the media, I say this deal's not going to happen, because every deal that comes through the media, where it's Eric Alonso with Mel Morris at Derby and whoever else it is next, never, whether it's the guy that wanted to buy Arsenal, that used the public domain to leverage his position and started to wheel in Dennis Bergkamp and whoever else you could do to get the popular position going on, you look at it and say, this deal, if you want to buy this football club, I couldn't buy Palace, so I wheeled in Arthur Anderson's because I couldn't deal with the people in situ at Palace. I'm surprised that you aren't wheeling in Rothschilds. I tell you what, Sullivan and Gold are difficult to deal with. They've got a valuation. We're not getting on very well. We'll bring in proper people to do a deal rather than flap our gums in the media.
Are you doing that anyway, Philip? Are you bringing in somebody?
Hold on. I'm not flapping my gums. I'm trying to just be honest and explain. And I don't feel comfortable that I have to answer direct questions that give more detail than I'm prepared to give. I've come on here today to...
That's not transparency then, is it? That's not what you've set in the record straight, is it?
It depends how... you define transparency. What I'm trying to do is to say to the West Ham fans, and they have become very... most of them supportive. I think you mentioned the Rio situation, and Anton. I think it's fair to say, and you know this as well, I'm going to keep saying that during the interview, I suppose, but at the end of these players, whether Declan Rice stays or goes, or Harry Kane stays or goes, will be legends at the clubs that they were at, hopefully, and go on. Let me finish. Go on to bigger.
But you're utilising them from a PR.
But I tell you what, Philip, take a break for a second, because we'll take a quick break. We'll return to this. But you've made one bid, you've shown proof of funds, and you are coming back in with a second bid.
We're preparing a second bid.
You're preparing a second bid. More with Philip Beard in a second. It is now officially Tuesday afternoon. It's Jim White and Simon Jordan. We're live on Talksport. We're talking about West Ham United. Would Messrs Sullivan, Gold and Brady sell up to the consortium PAI Capital, who have come forward? Sullivan, Gold and Brady are saying quite flatly the club is not for sale, but PAI think differently. Philip Beard, who is spokesman for PAI, is with us here in studio and has confirmed, Philip, that one bid went in and was rejected, that proof of funds were shown, although West Ham United deny that. But what you can confirm, Philip, is that you're going back in again with a second bid.
That's the plan. That is the plan. And I'm not going to give any numbers out of what it's going to go back in as. But, as Simon has said, and I think it's absolutely clear that Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Gold, Karen own the club, particularly Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Gold, and it's their right to turn down any offer. And, there have been other offers, I think, not that I'm been involved in at all, but that's the nature. And I also take Simon's point. All I want to do is I want to be able to be a better communicator. And that will only happen with this project if we get to buy the club. But, I think one of the things, and I'm sure we'll come on to keep you up, but one of the things that really is important to me is that fans, and I mean this absolutely, are everything to a football club. And you know that. You run a football club. Absolutely. And, when I go to games, I mean, just on a side issue, just briefly, what an amazing weekend of sport that was.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, from
fans back in the stadiums.
Watching Brentford playing Arsenal, and the passion of the fans, the passion of the players, the passion of the manager, the great picture of him going up to that little girl or boy afterwards was outstanding.
And that's what sport should involve, absolutely.
100%. And so communication is really important. Yeah. The next morning I watched, just to finish at the point, I watched New Zealand play Australia. What a game that was. And then the football on Saturday over the weekend was also outstanding.
Of course.
And the goals.
Culminating on Sunday with West Ham United going to Newcastle and winning.
And finishing off with one of the best days of Test match cricket I've seen.
When you look when you look at investments, like you just seen one recently, and you're not going to tell me the number, but I'm going to throw numbers at you. If you look at Palace recently, they've just got 90 million quid in from an American investor for 20% of the business. That must value Palace. I can't believe it does, but it values them at 500 or 600 million quid. This is the sort of territory that you guys are going to have to get into to buy West Ham. Are you in that territory without putting a specific number to it?
Again, from a business point of view, there has to be a realistic value on any business you're involved in, and football is no different. And what the fans will want to know is that if we do complete a deal, then we will have funds in order to invest in the players. And they had a great season last season. The season before wasn't so good.
Yep.
And we all know football can be a roller coaster ride. So I'm not going to go into numbers, but I am saying that we have in our business model allocated funds for transfers.
Because you guys talk about running a sustainable model, don't you? That's your blueprint. How much you buy the football club is a key component of how much you'll spend going forward, which I think is a little naive because, as I said at the beginning, smallest check is the first one you write out. But aren't you doing the same thing as Gold & Sullivan are doing? Don't they want to run it as a sustainable business? Didn't they want to nick it off the other guys for 2 and 6? Don't you want to get it off them as economically as possible? And don't you want to run it the same way that they want to run it? Well, except maybe communicate better with the fans.
No, I think that we have. Well, I know we've got, a business plan that I think will work. Part of that will be that we've been talking with the London Legacy Development Company.
Yeah.
So the stadium becomes a major part. At the moment, there are very few other activities being held at the stadium. And I want to repeat to all football fans, but particularly to West Ham fans, that they will be front and centre of that stadium. So we will invest on the pitch, but I think it is important because I do get lots of feedback from West Ham fans at the moment that. The stadium isn't configured, and I repeat what I said.
We know that,
Yeah, I know, but that's important because it's not going to be the bowling again. It's not going to be Upton Park, but we can make I think we can, or I know we can make the experience of watching a football match at the Olympic Stadium a better experience.
What would you do briefly, Philip, with the stadium? Because a lot of fans think we're playing football in an athletic stadium.
Yeah. Well, so at the moment. The way it was built was without any. When it was built, there was no boxes because when you're IOC, you don't need to have hospitality boxes. And quizzical.
I was going to smirk there because the average West Ham fan is going to not give a monkey's that hospitality boxes.
I understand that, but you know that revenue comes
from those generated corporates. Yeah, absolutely.
And at QPR and at West, I think West Ham have got one of the cheapest season ticket prices.
In
the Premier League at the moment.
They have.
So what you do, and again, we all know this, that commercial opportunities and hospitality and premium seating is going to help to fund, and the more you can do to help fund on the pitch,
player acquisition, etc.
Yeah. So I don't.
But the thing I find difficult to understand, right? And here's the point: your model is sustainability. Your blueprint is increased revenue. Whether I like them or I don't, and there's lots about David and David I do not, right? They're football operators and they get the dynamics of the football club. Now, yes, they take some money out and they service debt and the fans hate all that and they hated the move. Why wouldn't they just go and hire Philip Beard to make the revenue generation that you want to do in this faction and run the business the same way you're going to run it?
Well, I'm not sure at the moment I'm going to get a phone call from David Sullivan asking me to go and generate revenue for him. Well, let's not worry about that. I think at the moment... the opportunity, and again, this is a football Talksport show.
Yeah.
That my key message was and is that we are serious about trying to do this. But again, and I must have repeated now 4 or 5 times, if the owners of the club do not want to sell, or the valuation that we put on it is not anywhere close to what they would like to get for it, then we will have to go and do something else. And,
right.
I'm keen, as you know, Jim, on the Olympics. I managed, luckily or whatever, to be the chief exec of the O2 when it was a tent and it was part of the Olympics. And that was costing the taxpayer significant money as well.
Can you see a time when West Ham, under your control, would be able to meet the obligations of a transfer market that doesn't seem to be slowing down? Because what you've got at this moment in time, West Ham spending no money. Yeah. And the fans going potty about it because they've got a side that's getting 6th in the league but not reinvesting. Can you see a time, you've seen the transfer market, it's not slowing down post-COVID.
No, it's not.
Palace have spent £25 million on the centre-back from Denmark. Can you see a time when West Ham, under your ownership, with your revenue models that are going to be enabling the return to the investors but by the same time enabling the benefits for the football club, can you see a time in the foreseeable future where West Ham is spending 60, 70, 80 million, this is what the fans want to hear, 60, 70, 80 million pounds every transfer window, every season it turns around in the Premier League? Is that part of your thinking, that kind of level of spend?
What we're saying is that we would invest in the players on the pitch. I mean, if I take Brentford as a model, and I look at that new stadium...
Matthew's lost his shirt.
Well, I still think that what I saw on Friday night
It's a great story, but he's £200 million down.
Well, that's for him, and I'm sure that their aim is to have players that they can move and sell on as well.
Which they do.
Which they do.
Yeah.
And they pretty much, I won't say played off the park, but they literally gave Arsenal, how it can be done.
But Matthew's lost 200 million quid to get that point. Your model is not like that. You're not benefactors. You're going to self-service this club. You're going to enable it. You're going to build all the facilities around it. You're going to take that money and you're going to drop it into the club's cash flow. But if you get that wrong and it doesn't work the way you think it does, someone's got to go in their pocket, haven't they?
Well, Philip, while you're talking, actually, we will take a quick news bulletin break. But a lot of West Ham's fans getting in touch with us. Do they care that much about the Olympic legacy? We'll get into that. What is the level of debt? We can answer that. And when will you come back in with another bid? Stay with us. At the moment, we're with Philip Beard of PAI Capital, the consortium seeking to buy West Ham United. Mr. Jordan is putting obstacles in Mr. Beard's way, left and centre.
More than obstacles.
Well, certainly, Philip. This is what you would expect from this fella who's been over the course and bought a football club in his time, Crystal Palace, and thereafter had 10 years of a whole lot of wheeling and dealing.
Do you know what I used to
of admiration and a bunch of hatred as well.
No,
no, he didn't have that.
I used to, when I was a kid, go into Holmesdale end. So I used to live literally down.
So did I.
Yeah, and it was my first experience of football because it was close to home and I was very young. And I remember actually standing. I couldn't understand why people and fans didn't stand behind the metal barriers because it was all standing.
It was then, yeah.
And I'd stand there, then I'd work out because if there was a goal scored, there'd be a massive rush and you get crushed. So the only place to stay is in front of those barriers.
Yeah.
And so I remember that. I remember the Malcolm Allison days at Palace.
Yeah, me
the
too.
Fedora.
Yeah, I grew up. My dad played for them when I was in the 50s, and I grew up and standing on that Homestead, getting phone from one end to the back to the front whenever they scored.
And it was my first experience of watching and seeing how amazing a football club is to fans.
Absolutely right.
And everyone knows most people know I was at QPR, and I used to watch 3 generations of family come down South Africa Road to come to Loftus Road, and it just made me realise again. And when the Super League was being muted, and the one thing that those owners, in my opinion, got totally wrong is they didn't think about the most important commodity or
fan reaction.
Fan reaction, but it's their club.
Yeah,
and the passion that you see.
Oh yeah,
is something we all love because we all love sport, and I don't mind if you want to pay more money to be in hospitality, then that's great because they're fans, and if you want to have good season ticket prices, the best thing about the weekend and hopefully going forward is watching the crowds come back. And
absolutely.
Even the results, I think, have been affected by it because
I think you're right.
Well, Philip, what I would say is, I think now that we're talking about West Ham fans in this instance, I don't think there are many sets of fans that would rival the passion of the West Ham supporters. They love their club. They are very dubious, many of them, about the current ownership, although Sullivan, Gold and Brady, I think, cop for a bit of flack that they shouldn't get, but that's just by the by. But they certainly are amongst the most passionate in the country. And what they want to see is what they saw last season. A very successful season under David Moyes. They finished 6th. They want to finish higher. They're in Europe. They want to go all the way in Europe.
Well, they almost came very close to Champions League.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was magnificent. What you're saying is your consortium is a wealthy one with funds that came in once and will come in again with a second bid. When, you can't tell us at the moment, but we're talking sooner than later. And that you have shown proof of funds, so the money's there and you will come back in with a second bid. But also, the consortium is big on the Olympic legacy. With all due respect, and I ask you again, Philip, the West Ham fans, I don't think, care much about the Olympic legacy. They want to see a winning team on the pitch under Moyes going right up that Premier League table.
And I totally understand that. And 2 seasons ago, West Ham struggled. And a lot of clubs have that roller coaster ride. And last season, they had a very good season. And our intention, if we are able to complete this, is that would be a key priority for us. But as, again, Simon, and we all know, there are no guarantees when you set your team out on a pitch that you can have success ongoing. But what you can do, you can have more consistency. You can have an ability to get realistically into the transfer market, you need a good manager, obviously,
of course,
and backroom staff. I think Stuart Pearce is there, and it's Kevin Nolan. And you look at it and you say that structure at the moment looks pretty good to me.
It does. But by putting emphasis on the Olympic legacy, Philip, does that not show this is more of a property play?
No, it really doesn't. I really need to let you know that, or make sure it's out there. As all I'm saying is, having been involved, as you know, a lot of these stadiums now have big concerts that generate significant revenue. If you get it right, significant upside as well. And other events that I think you can run. I mean, I'd love to put, if we did it, I would love to put world-class boxing on there and put on events that actually, I think a lot of the fans, I totally get, their priority is what happens with West Ham on the pitch.
Of course, but to do what you're saying, do you not need to own the stadium to do the kind of things that you're talking about?
That will be part of the programme. We will run the stadium.
You'd buy the stadium outright?
We'll run the stadium.
They'll run the stadium. There's a different dynamic. But with respect, Philip, that's precisely the same song that Mel Morris sat here singing about how he revalued Derby Stadium because he was going to monetise it through. Everybody knows that secondary spend inside stadiums is an opportunity being very much missed by football clubs because they're amateurish in their approach to it. We all know that.
Yep.
But the reality of it is that what you're saying is this model only works, and it is a property play, because you're going to enable the development of the footprint around it to be giving you revenue streams to be able to repay the investment that you put in the first place for your private equity group, and to service the football club's demands going forward. Because the football club is an avaricious beast. It will keep on demanding more and more and more. Right? And the bar doesn't get stopped, and if West Ham fans don't consider the fact that last year you spent £100 million, so this year you're going to spend nothing, they will want, and the reason why Jim's right to point it out, and you're right also to mention it, because there's nothing wrong with you representing the Olympic model and the legacy of that. But unfortunately, when you're talking about a PR methodology and a communication, you're falling foul of that, because West Ham fans don't want to hear that. All they want to hear is the clear message should be that is going to give us revenue, which you're going to get.
Right, okay.
That's what you're going to get.
But this is this is a really good session, quite a long session, and I wanted to get a couple of messages over, because I think fans, sport fans, would want to hear a bit of that. I totally and utterly understand that if you're a West Ham person, well, West Ham fan, what they want to hear is about the investment in the
What if you get it wrong? What if you get it wrong? Well, what if your models are wrong, right? And you don't, and given your expertise at the O2, and all of that, right? The O2 is completely different from a football stadium,
totally.
Right? But so, just to say you get it wrong, and there's a gap in your finances, who's going to fund that? Your private equity firm. Continue to run it that way. Ad infinitum, because it's a football club's a bloody hard place to make any money, because you're going in it to make money. You're not doing a charity, are you?
No, this isn't a charity play, obviously. But there, and again, I just wanted to I want the message to go to West Ham fans that I think, without doing any damage to the success on the pitch, and hopefully enhance it and improve it, but nobody is going to be able to guarantee that. You know, when we look at some of the transfer fees over the last few weeks, they're slightly off the scale, and they're getting more and more off the scale. Big time
off the scale.
And transfer fees,
yeah. And
absolutely.
And also, realistically, wages are also at a tipping point, because, and I'm a football nut fan, but some of the values of some of the players that are going, in my opinion,
it's madness.
And I've been there and done it.
Madness, yeah.
And sometimes you slightly, I was there, the due diligence that needs to be done on players, particularly if you're bringing them from different parts of the world,
of course,
needs to be really enhanced. And what you're looking for, and sorry, if in case I forget this, one of our other plans would be to develop the training facilities, and develop the academy. And I know that with the percentage of homegrown players through academies is relatively low, but that's, I think, where football ultimately, if there is a correction, financial correction, that's where it's going to have to go.
Who's the football operators? Are you the football operator in the group? Who's the football
one
operator?
of them.
You're one of them.
Yeah, but I'm head. Otherwise, you do get mixed messages. I know you're criticising the way we're doing or the communication, but that's totally your prerogative. I think this is not the wrong way to do it. I think this is wanting to get our message out and to the fans, and totally and utterly, and I keep saying it, have absolute respect for Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Gold and Karen Brady. And I've spent time with David when I was at QPR because he came to the Premier League games.
Yeah.
I obviously spent time with Karen because she came to all the Premier
There's
League
a big
meetings.
disconnect, isn't there? They're absolutely adamant. And they're absolutely adamant they haven't received a bid from you. So someone's not telling the truth, aren't they? Someone for their own ends is not suggesting the facts are the facts. If you've made a bid and it's unequivocal that bid, there's no misinterpretation, then David Sullivan and David Gold are not telling the truth, are they?
You have to ask David. I can't speak for his interpretation of what he got or not.
Well, we all know what a bid looks like, don't we?
Yeah, I've been involved in a few, and so I
Philip,
do.
the bid was made, and the second one's going to be made, right?
That's the plan, and
am I right? Yeah.
Yes, that's the plan. The plan. Yes, it is.
Right.
So
okay.
So we want.
So you know what you're getting into.
Totally.
And the debt is running at 125 million.
Yep.
But I'm informed reliably that by next summer the debt could be running at 175 million.
Well,
so you're aware of that.
There's no surprises. Hold on. There's no surprise at the moment. I mean, no football club or sporting association or club has been able to sell a hamburger for 2 years, let alone a season ticket or tickets.
Sure.
So, you know, it's not rocket science when your revenues have been pretty much. I mean, the Premier League money is there and the Championship together, but it must be very,
is it
very
a good time,
difficult.
do you think, to buy a football club?
It is for me, and I think it is for our group.
Yeah.
Time will tell, Simon. You know, there are no guarantees other than, you know, I give 24/7 to anything I do. And if
are you in favour of things like salary caps? Because you see the Premier League are announcing today that they're going to get another few hundred million.
Well, I think they will. I think they will come in. I don't think sport.
I think needed,
has got a choice.
Can't sustain it. So, Phil, as we get to the end of this, we'll let you have the last word. Then we'll take a break and we'll say goodbye and we'll wait for the second bid. But briefly, what can you promise West Ham fans listening this lunchtime? Why should they trust you?
Well, I hope the group are very serious about this. The funding is there. I think. I've learned a lot about football in the time I was at QPR. Lots of things I would totally do differently, and some of the things I would repeat. But at the end of the day, we love it. I'm appalled by what's happening, and this is off the subject, but in Afghanistan and Haiti, and sport is sport. We love it, but you've got to put it in perspective. And I'm as avid about sport and football as anybody else. And, I'm avid that I'm very keen that, today was just a way to try and put out my point across. And I knew that because of the social media activity, there have been lots of West Ham fans wanting more information. And Simon will know this. You get a percentage of people that give you real stick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But they're passionate, but that's what happens.
And you'll get stick from this.
Yeah, totally.
But you're also out in the open.
Yeah, and we all have thick skins, most of us, in life. And
well, he's had to have.
But I think the time is right.
Right.
But that's again not my decision. That's the current owners, whether or not it's possible to get something done. And if it's not, then I will be still as significantly interested in watching the progress of West Ham, hopefully going up at the table. And most of the response has seemed to be quite strong and positive. But you can talk a great game, but you've got to deliver it.
Okay. And we await the second bid. Philip Beard, thanks so much.
That's a great pleasure. Good to see you both.